Again, I want to say my name's Andy Cripps from the Effingham County Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to the 2020 Georgia Senate District 4 Candidates Forum, presented by the Chamber and by the Effingham Herald. We're glad you could join us for what we hope will be an informative discussion. The forum will introduce candidates seeking to fill the remaining term of Georgia State Senator Jack Hill, serving Georgia's 4th District. Election day for the state Senate seat is June 9th, with early voting beginning next Monday, May 18th. Also on the ballot are a contested local race for clerk of the Superior Court, races for Georgia Supreme Court Justice, a referendum reauthorizing the Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, as well as Democratic and Republican primary contests to select candidates for president, the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives, among others. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this evening's forum is being conducted remotely via Zoom and streamed live on the Chamber of Commerce's Facebook page. We want to thank all the participating candidates and you for bearing with us and understanding the limitations of this online video technology. We hope you'll forgive any technical glitches in the program. Now I'd like to introduce the moderator for this evening's program, Mark Lastinger.
Andy?
Yes, you're unmuted. I apologize again.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for listening. I especially want to thank the candidates. You know, this is the first time in many years that Effingham County voters have had a ballot that doesn't have Jack Hill's name on it. And, you know, obviously he was a legislative titan. And I've only lived in Effingham County for 4 years. And I can say I would have really been surprised to learn that he wasn't an Effingham County native from the way that he acted, from the way that the people embraced him. And I just appreciate you guys participating and you ladies participating because it'll really help our voters. I'm sure that y'all know a lot of Effingham County people, but you know, most people are kind of going into it blind for the first time in a long time. So again, I thank you for participating. The way this is going to work is I'm going to give each of you to introduce yourself, and then we'll start answering the questions. And I've probably got more questions than we'll ever be able to get to. But the way this is going to work is Dr. Bohlke, he'll probably get the first question because we're going to go alphabetical order the first time. But after that, we'll just rotate through. So everybody will get a first crack at a question. And then, you know, there'll be a question where you'll get to go last, which is probably the best position to be since you can hear everybody else's answer. But let's go ahead and start with the introductions, and we'll start with Dr. Bohlke.
All right, thank you. Thank you for, I'd like to thank the Effingham, the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this, and the Effingham Herald for posting this on the Facebook page. So I'm Dr. Scott Bohlke. I am originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and attended the University of Georgia, the Medical College of Georgia, and spent 4 years in the Air Force after my residency in Columbus, Georgia. And I want to express my deep sadness and the unfortunate circumstances for all we are here now with the passing of Jack Hill. And certainly this unprecedented times that we have right now with this COVID-19 pandemic. So why I want to introduce myself and say that I'm uniquely qualified for this seat. I'm uniquely qualified because I have spent 21 years here in primary care and family practice here in Brooklet, Georgia. I have been taking care of patients that have suffered from this and much other ailments throughout the years that I've been here. My practice is a microcosm. It is a slice of all of this district from all comers, all walks of life, whether they be educators, whether it be farmers, it doesn't matter. I've taken care of those folks in this office. I'm a small business owner. I have 10 employees right now. And so I know what it is to make a payroll, to stay up at night worrying about making a payroll and getting up early in the morning to make sure I work. I've also been very fortunate to receive the endorsement from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. Speaks volumes to me on who they chose to endorse and to support. I've served my country. I spent 4 years in the United States Air Force as a physician, taking care of all the airmen as well as officers in the Air Force. I had to pay for, that's how I paid for medical school. Cannot afford it, took out loans, and therefore was able to use the Air Force to pay for my medical school and actually gain some much valuable and added experience as a physician. I also spent 4 years on the Bullitt County School Board of Education from 2006 to 2010. And many of y'all know that this was right in the middle of the Great Recession from 2008 and 2009. I know how to make those tough choices. Budgets were tight. We were building schools at that time, so I know about making those choices. It doesn't make me an expert to be on education for 4 years, but I've certainly been exposed to the educational arena. I've also served my community. I've served as a co-founder of the Hearts and Hands Clinic. That is a clinic that serves people who do not have insurance. They do not qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, and they can't afford health insurance. Helped co-found that almost 10 years ago, and I still serve there today. I want to say that I've been involved at the legislative process for the past 10 or 15 years. I was the president of the Medical Association of Georgia and currently their chair on their Council of Legislation. What that means is I've been up to Atlanta multiple times. I've spoke to my legislators on multiple occasions, called them even during right in the middle of my practice. So I've been exposed to that, and that's why I want to be your next senator. I think am uniquely qualified during this pandemic that we're having right now to help serve this district and serve the people that I've continued to serve through my 21 years. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hickman, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Billy Hickman. I'm from Statesboro. I'm born and raised here. I married. I went to Georgia Southern College. Married Joanne Ray Hickman from Bloomingdale, Georgia. I'm a Republican businessman. I'm on my own business for 37 years. I've actually been practicing accounting for 45 years. I'm a certified public accountant and certified in financial forensics. I'm a lifelong resident of this district, and I'm running to put our communities first. And that is why my campaign is supported by our local community. 80% of our funding has come from our local communities. I want to put our interests first instead of outside interests. I also want to put the interests of our district first instead of the Atlanta special interest groups. The passing of Jack Hill was a tremendous loss for all of us, our state, our local district, and all. And it would take a long time to fill his shoes, big shoes. In these uncertain times, it is vital that we have a trusted, steady hand to represent our values at the Capitol. We need a proven conservative leader with real business and financial experience, and in order to navigate the impacts of COVID-19 on our families, our businesses, and our economy. My conservative principles and decades of experience as a certified public accountant make me uniquely qualified to lead our district during these challenging times. During these tough times, we need somebody with the expertise to work with the governor and the legislative leaders towards creative solutions that put our local taxpayers first, our businesses first, and our families first. As your state senator, I will secure every available resource for our communities to help us deal with the impacts of the COVID-19 coronavirus. I will provide a bold voice for our communities, not the special interest groups of Atlanta. I will invigorate job growth. I will improve access to health care in rural communities, which is essential for economic development. I will give every student the means to success for the 21st century workforce. I will fight against big government and the radical left and protect our values and God-given rights. I will stand for life. I will stand for the right to bear arms. I will stand for our religious freedoms. We need a proven leader, conservative leader, to lead us during and after COVID-19. Fight for values and put our families first. I've held many leadership positions. I've never been satisfied with being on a committee. I always want to be chairman of that committee. I know that I am the proven leader and I'm an innovative leader. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Palmer.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Palmer from Emmanuel County. I've always had a passion for politics my entire life, and I recently retired from a job that I really loved, which was Superior Court judge. This open election, brought on by the untimely death of a Georgia legend, Jack Hill, opened up an opportunity that my servant's heart just couldn't pass up. I've worked my entire career as a lawyer and as a judge. I've had extensive legislative involvement by advocating for a number of issues across a wide variety of areas, including criminal, family, and procedural law, judicial budget, agriculture, and Georgia 4-H. I have extensive knowledge of the legislative process, and I'm ready to go to work full-time for you. My first priority will be to advocate aggressively for the District 4 budget in the upcoming budget session, where the budget shortfalls brought about by the revenue decline from the COVID-19 shutdown will require careful monitoring, and that's something that I have experience doing. It's also going to require careful advocating, strong advocating on behalf of District 4 to be certain that essential services in District 4 are maintained. And advocating strongly is a skill that I possess. Also, as a priority, we've got to reopen our economy. I pledge to work with the state leadership, with the county and local authorities to be certain that we can return our economy to a healthy one. And healthy economy means something different to all of us today than it did before. I want to get to know the people of District 4 and hear what they have to say. I plan to hear what they say and respond. I'm a problem solver by training and experience, and I want to work with the people in District 4 to hear those problems and to respond so that those problems can be solved. Ladies and gentlemen, my faith, my ethics, and my values have always guided my decision-making as an attorney, and especially for the almost 20 years as a Superior Court judge, where making difficult decisions every day was the task that I faced. As your senator, I will not abandon those values, my faith, and those ethics that have been the bedrock of human. Ladies and gentlemen of District 4, you need a senator you can count on, and that's me.
Okay, Mr. Sammons.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jared Sammons. I'm running in this special election because I'm just as tired as business as usual as you are, and I want to see results. For years, we've seen useless slogans by both parties that don't translate into anything, and on the very rare occasion when a policy is put forth, the parties are offering us ice cream when in reality we should probably be offered broccoli. With new policies that have seen no action, we've seen no action except for tax breaks that designed to incentivize us, but these don't work because 85% of Georgia doesn't utilize them. And if they did, it would cause more budget cuts. The ones that do benefit, though, are often tied to the parties. For years, we have seen the two parties fail us, one calling one side a fascist and the other communist. If someone equated me to Hitler or Stalin, I probably would not talk to them either. This has to end. I think people are miserable and politics shares a lot of the blame. I'm offering another option with reasonable solutions that everyone who wants to help can agree on. As for me, I grew up in Adrian on the very edge of the district. I've been here most of my life. I went to the University of Georgia with a lot of help and the Hope Scholarship. I want to see that, fortified, and then worked in Atlanta. There wasn't very much for me back here as far as jobs were concerned. And then I went on to law school at Washington and Lee and just graduated there. I promise you my best, but I need your help though. And let's fix this.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Singleton.
My name is Neil Singleton. I live in Collins, Georgia, like everybody else. I hated being here like this. especially with the passing of Jack. I met Jack quite a few times. We actually live close to each other. Unlike the other candidates, I was here since September of last year running for this position. I was running against Jack on the same ticket because I felt that I could serve better than Jack or as well as Jack. And I have different ideas and views which are needed in this day and time. Jack was a great man. We need to sometimes refresh what is going on in the Senate. I'm a United States Army veteran. I'm a Gulf War era veteran where I served my country honorably. I am a 70% rated disabled veteran. I have a degree in criminal justice. I served my community as a deputy sheriff and a law enforcement officer. Sorry, guys, I'm shooting from the hip here, not on the script. But I want to be your senator because things need to change and somebody needs to be honest and be honest out with everybody, whether it's going to hurt somebody's feelings or not, like I have done recently. I will call out what is wrong and I'll give accolades to those who are right. I don't think the state really needs much more guidance in the COVID-19 virus. I do not think any candidate can sit here and say that they can actually help with the COVID-19 virus. I think the state should have never been closed. The state should be open right now. We should be doing business as usual. In 1969, we had a pandemic of the Hong Kong flu, H3N3. 100,000 Americans infected, 1 million people worldwide. What did we do? We threw a party, Woodstock. Right now, we need to get back to business. We need to start looking at our shortfalls with the budget. And speaking of the budget, I do not think a senator should be accepting a salary. That's one of my stances. I do not think a senator should be accepting large donations from corporations. Another one of my stances. I want those actually passed in law to where donations cannot be accepted from outside entities or large corporations so that the senators themselves can remain an individual and not be swayed for a decision one way or the other. I can promise you one thing, I'm here for you. I'm here for your rights, your Second Amendment rights, your constitutional carry rights, and everything else in the Constitution. I'm not here for a title. I'm here for you, period. Thank you.
All right, well, now we get to the question part, and I failed to mention when we get through with the questions, and will probably end because of time constraints, you will get a chance to make some closing comments. So be thinking about that. And also, if somebody makes some kind of charge or a point that you want to challenge, we will stop for a second and let you do that. One candidate can talk to the other. But we want to try to stick to answering the question that's asked, because more than likely we're going to get to a bunch of issues here. We'll probably get into what you want to talk about. And by the way, Mr. Singleton, you may not want to answer the first question because I think you already did. It's going to deal with COVID-19, and probably the first 3 or 4 questions are going to deal with COVID-19. And I think you made your point pretty clear. Yeah, and that first question is, how do you think Georgia and Governor Kemp have handled COVID-19 from a health standpoint and from what it's done to us economically? Dr. Bohlke.
That's directed towards me.
Dr. Bohlke.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I've been asked that question multiple times, by my patients who come in and see me on a regular basis. Hey, have we opened this, the Open Georgia, as Governor Kemp opened this up too quickly, lifted too many restrictions too quickly? And so I struggle with this question on a regular basis. I certainly see the fear of the patients when they come in and see me with their mask. And also, I'm a small business owner, and I understand if we don't get small businesses and regular business back open, we are going to hurt this economy. I think a very gradual phase-in is occurring right now. I think that's a very appropriate thing to do. The curve is bending, as they say. We're seeing less cases coming out, where less people. We have no patients in our hospital here in Statesboro with the COVID-19 virus. So I think we're moving in the right direction. The real key in any of this is testing. So I would take some offense that nobody can do anything about this on this during this election. And I think I would argue that I could. This is what I do on a daily basis. This is what is needed at this time. Healthcare is the second biggest thing in the budget at the state. And I think a person like myself, a physician, could do wonders as a first term or a second term individual at the Senate. I think it's absolutely imperative that we help these people. We are people losing insurance, which affects their health care moving forward due to this virus. And when they lose their health care, they delay their health. They delay certain things that need to be done. And I'm worried about that for my patients. I see it in my patients' eyes as they come in on a regular basis. And I want to try to help them to continue to have their health looked after, not only in my office, but up in Atlanta.
Okay, Mr. Hickman?
Thank you, sir. This has been a different time for all of us. This has been a time of fear. This has been a time of uncertainty. This has been a time of our businesses not knowing what was going on. I'm very supportive of Governor Kemp and the policies he put in place with Dr. Toomey, and I watch the statistics every day of my life around lunchtime, and I've seen the curve go down and has gone down tremendously. About 2 weeks ago, I was in line at the local hamburger place, and a little lady called me on the phone, 79 years old, and I thought she was going to talk about some other issue, but she said, "Mr. Hickman, we got to get our economy back open. We got to get our businesses back open. We got to get our employees back to work." She was really concerned about the big picture of things and not necessarily just about her. And that's the way I think we all need it. As I'm out and around the district, probably 40% of people, 30% of people I see with masks on, and that's becoming a new norm. I accept that. I'm really excited about what Governor Kemp is doing as we move it slowly. I applaud his efforts, and I know that with the budget, with the revenues for April of 2020 being 35.9% for state, less than were for 2019, and also Governor Kemp has asked all the state agencies to look at cutting their budgets by 14%. This is horrendous, and it concerns me as an individual, concerns me as a parent. Education being cut 14%, law enforcement being cut 14%, all across the board, and it's going to be a tough time to deal with. And me being a CPA, and I've done a lot of strategic planning in my life. I've done a lot of budgets, forecasts, done a lot of sitting down with clients, reviewing financial statements, preparing financial statements. So I'm very prepared to help us lead us through this crisis and get our economy back going.
Okay, Ms. Palmer?
Thank you. Until you've actually walked in someone's shoes, it's hard to judge whether they've made good decisions or bad decisions. I don't think any of us on this forum have any idea of the information that Governor Kemp actually had available to him in making these decisions. I've known Brian Kemp for about 3 decades. I've served on committees with him before at the state level, before he was actively involved as an elected official. And I know that he has a good heart, and I know that he's tried to make good decisions for all of us here in the whole state in District 4. So I think that we all need to follow his guidance and show support where we can. But at the same time, remember, for those who are afraid, that they have the right and the opportunity to do less, that they don't have to jump right out into the public forum. But for those who want to go forward, we're a free country. And I think that we do need to allow those businesses to go forward as long as they're following those best practices that are recommended, both by the doctors, by the economic professionals, by law enforcement. And remember that I've been working as a judge, and when this COVID-19 quarantine happened, we had to shut down the courts. The judicial system for the state of Georgia shut down, except for essential services. And that was a process we had to work through, and it was very difficult. We're just now starting to come back with video conferencing for hearings where the parties will agree, or for some where it's absolutely necessary, such as some criminal proceedings. So the COVID-19 has not just affected the businesses, it has affected everyone. And of course, when one's civil rights and criminal rights, procedural rights are being impacted, that affects many, many people. As a judge, we were having to work through issues like helping the sheriffs and the prosecutors get people out of the jails if they could possibly be bonded out or be sent to some sort of home monitoring system, such as one of those electronic systems. We've worked through those processes. We've had a lot of issues with COVID-19, dealing with things where all of the parents are sheltering in place, and we have children from divided families where the parents are divorced or were never married and had legitimated children with custody orders. We've had to work through all those issues. Where does the child stay while you're sheltering in place? What if the custodial parent doesn't want the child to go to the other parent's home? How do we deal with those issues? So these COVID-19 shutdown has impacted many, many lives. Families have had to wrestle with this every day, and the courts have had to work through those problems. So I'm looking forward to us being able to come out of this following the best practices, and I think we all should work together. We've worked together to quarantine. Now let's work together to open up the economy so that there can be jobs for everyone, so that families and children can feel safe, so that the children can go to school. So we need to work together across the state from the bottom up and from the top down so that everyone can feel safe and have as normal a life as possible, and we can have a healthy Georgia.
Okay, Mr. Sammons?
Hi. I agree with Judge Palmer that we're not in Brian Kemp's shoes, and we do have the benefit of hindsight. And that said, there are some things we probably didn't do right. It's in these times that we need to look at other countries and what they have done. And a good example of who probably did it right was South Korea. They were able to separate their mobile testing and mobile response from their hospitals so that they weren't confined in a small place. They were able to test rapidly and effectively and identify those who were infected with this COVID-19 and quarantine them. And they also avoided a complete shutdown like we did. It was still limited with social distancing measures. And I think that is what Governor Kemp is trying to do. And I applaud him for that. But we have to live by those: rapid testing, effective testing, separate facilities, and social distancing until we do get a vaccine, which could be very soon. It could be in quite some time. And with that, like, I agree, I'm viewing this from hindsight. However, South Korea is the success in this. They were able to avoid the shutdown with only 250 deaths to date, and they were infected and it got to their borders before it got to ours. So we need to look beyond ourselves and borrow from others. And I think that is what Governor Kemp is trying to do, but it might have been just a tad bit too late.
Okay. Mr. Singleton, you made your point pretty clearly in your opening remarks, but you want to elaborate on that any?
Yeah, just a few points. Thank you. I agree with Judge Palmer on the fact that things, that Kemp was doing some things right. But for the most part, I do not agree that Kemp has done most things right. It was during all this, she was right. People can stay home if they want to. We are a free country. We are supposed to protect the majority as well as the minority, but keeping in mind that the majority rules. We shut down a state and an economy, which is going to cost us billions for a virus that has a 0.008 infection rate in Georgia, less than that with the death rate. There's been previous things within the last 2 decades that were way worse than this virus. It's not stating that this virus is not serious. The virus and certain people that get this will die. They will die from other things, but they will get this and they'll have issues. Nobody wants a death. That's what not anybody's advocating for. I would argue that, no, we did not work together. The governor told the state, this is what you're going to do, like it or not. That is not how a republic should be ran. And that's what I agree with. I believe if we had just paced and kept going, we would have seen numbers, but not, I don't even think we'd see numbers like we do today. The numbers have went down. Oddly enough, they went down after the state opened. Numbers make no sense anymore. And like I say, I applaud Kemp for what he did, but I'll have to condemn him for shutting the state down so quickly in a harsh manner to ruin people's lives. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Hickman, it's your turn to go first. And interestingly enough, you mentioned some of these numbers in your opening remarks. Because of the shutdown, We've lost a lot of tax revenue, and the governor has called for $3.6 billion in cuts. And he's asking everybody to have a 14% cut. And at least at first, he said no exceptions. Do you think that across the board cuts like that are the best way to go? Or do you think there should be a closer look at agencies as individual units to make those cuts?
I think a couple of things on that. First of all, there's not a single person anywhere that hadn't been affected by this coronavirus, whether it be in Georgia or the United States. So when these cuts are made, people may not accept the cuts, may not like the cuts, but we're all affected by it. I think we're gonna have to take a hard look. You know, it really bothers me when I think about the cuts because we are going to be put into a situation which ones get cuts now. You know, education is a big thing that I enjoy talking about. Law enforcement is a big thing I enjoy talking about, and I hate to see those type of things that are so important to our livelihood every day. Education and law enforcement having these big cuts. I think it's going to take a lot of sitting down, reviewing, looking at it. Not that people will accept it, but I know when I'm getting there and I'm able to study it, we'll make the intelligent decisions for the right departments and all. But I do believe that people are ready for the cuts. They understand the cuts, but we're gonna have to make some crucial hard decisions for everybody.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
In the past budget, the governor had already called first for a 4% reduction, and then that followed closely with a 6% reduction. So we'd already had actually a 10% reduction. Well, it doesn't really work that way, but we already had those two budget calls for reductions before the COVID-19 ever came. So we were already in a precarious position in terms of cutting back on all the services across the board. Now this call for reduction of a 14% reduction is obviously going to cut into away into all of these agencies that we just can't even imagine right now. There are, in fact, some of the smaller agencies that the personnel costs for those agencies are so small, are so much part of the budget that they go as high as anywhere from 85 to 90% of the budget itself. So if you cut 14%, obviously you're cutting into personnel. So not only are you going to have to furlough, you're probably going to have to get rid of some positions. So we're talking about people's livelihoods out there in all of these reductions. But nonetheless, our state constitution requires us to have a balanced budget. It is constitutional, unlike the federal government that can go into debt to fund a budget. The Georgia legislature constitutionally cannot do that. So the governor is mandated to call upon the legislature to make those cuts. It's the legislature that sets the budget. The governor has a budget recommendation. But the legislature sets the budget. So it's the legislature that's going to have to make these very difficult decisions on who gets what amount of money from a fund that is greatly reduced. So we need a senator from this district who can monitor that budget process. I have experience doing that. We're going to have to aggressively advocate to be certain that the essential services for this district are not reduced so that our people are hurting in terms of supplying the necessary state funding for those essential services. And if elected your senator, I intend to advocate aggressively, as I'm trained to do, to be certain that the interests of District 4 are taken care of. Everybody's going to be hurt. We're all going to be bleeding. Employees are going to be furloughed. Salaries are going to be reduced. It is a reality of fact. But we must all pull together so that each of us will know that at the end, we are a strong Georgia, a healthy Georgia.
Okay, Mr. Sammons?
Going back to Governor Kemp's statement about across the board percentage reductions, I think that's pretty irresponsible. Some things we should prioritize, especially in a circumstance like this in our public health crisis, and go through and look and examine with a closer look, and it is the legislature's job to do that. However, there are other ways that we can meet that constitutional requirement of a balanced budget. Currently, there is a law on the books, 48-7-40.20, that gives a tax credit for cigarette companies who export. We need to go through the tax code and chisel them out as well that don't benefit us in any way possible. And that would give us some much better leverage to be able to make these decisions moving forward. They're going to be difficult, no doubt. And I'm not saying I'm not going to cut any budget if I am the legislature, but there are other ways that we can lessen the impact of this. And I think we need to look at the tax code as well.
Okay, Mr. Singleton?
Yes, sir. I actually agree with Jared in this case. And I would like to say, for answering this question, I'm really glad Jared's part of this debate and not just a Republican or Democratic debate. So thank you, Jared. The budget's going to always be tough. Like Judge Palmer had said, it's up to the legislators to make the budget. The governor recommends 14%, which during his tenure would reduce the state's budget by nearly 25%. If we do a full 14% across the board, 25% tenure, his budget would be cut 25% during his short term as tenure as governor. And as of now, the legislation has allowed that to happen. Now, some things do need cut, and I would say that some things need to be investigated. Our tax code is one of them. The tax code, and I was actually going to bring that up about the cigarette companies, is ridiculous. No large corporations who are bringing in billions of dollars to the state of Georgia, hundreds of millions, should be exempt from their fair tax. And that's one thing that the legislation and Kemp and previous governors have let the corporations get by with through lobbyists and such, and the insurance companies. We may not have been in this situation and may have a budget surplus. But we talk about budget cuts and 14%. There are 56 Georgia senators. All of you refuse your salary. I challenge every one of you. I don't want the salary. That's almost $1 million. Whose jobs can we save? How many teachers? A lot, quite a few, especially in these low income school areas like Tattnall County and Evans County, where their teachers do not get paid as much. They're talking about furlough days because the education budget wants to be cut by nearly $1.3 billion. We can't do that. We can't cut any budget in education, period. Where we can cut budget, let's investigate Medicare in the state, which bills at a rate of 800 times higher than other programs and other insurances, and it gets accepted and paid by the state. Why? Why are doctors' offices and other facilities billing at an average 800 times higher rate? This is not an accusation, Scott. So it's not an I'm just saying it's just out there, and that's the fact that it is known, and it's an 800 average above even what the VA bills. And the VA is going to get their money from the federal government. We know that, and from the state. So there's all kinds of things we can start looking at. I would think Mr. Hickman would be great at doing an audit on the Medicaid program. 100%. I think he could probably do that. What if we went in there and found exactly where all our budget could be cut and all of our money? What if it's all sitting right there in overbilling and fraud? So as far as the budget goes, I think I've said enough on that.
Okay, Dr. Bohlke.
Well, I currently serve on the healthcare workforce board right now, and which helps supply physicians to rural counties. And I've had to go through this exercise as we speak, the 14% cut. It's 14% cut to the residencies which train physicians to go out to these rural areas. And not just family practice, it's also surgery, it's also OBGYNs. There's about 7 counties in the state that do not have a physician, and something like over 40 that do not have an OBGYN. So I've been through this process, and thank God we do have the requirement to balance this budget. It keeps our AAA bond rating the way it is, and it helps us in the state tremendously. As been stated before, we're not the federal government and all the trillions of dollars that they're in debt, but we do have to balance this budget, which makes these difficult decisions. Whoever's elected, and if I'm elected to do this, this is a very difficult time to be coming into office. There's going to be some hard choices. once again, I've served that as a school on the school board when the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009. We had to make those choices. I do think going department by department and not just across the board cut, I think is the reasonable and common sense thing to do. I think that's the best way to look at it, from department to department, and just don't do a blanket 14% cut. So I think common sense will rule in this situation, because it has to when it comes to these kind of situations. But that's what I can do, and with the common sense and having done this already and currently doing this at the present time, I think I'd be able to do that. Thank you.
I think you're right. Probably everybody would want to be a state senator. If state senators could pass the buck like congressmen do, wouldn't it be an easy job? All right, Ms. Palmer, it's your turn to go first. Now, I did a lot of reading to prepare for this event tonight, and one of the things that struck me was that some people were projecting, economic experts are predicting, we're going to lose $4 billion probably in revenue over the next 18 months. So what do you think we need to do to get this economy going and maybe make the number not quite so shocking? What's your economic plan, you think?
Well, I think the economists actually are saying that that's sort of a lowball figure, that it may actually be higher than that, which is truly sad for our state and our nation, our world. I think what we need to do is go ahead and let those businesses that want to start open up, following the best practices, the recommended practices. Perhaps we need to do things like have as a best practice that all of us really do participate in wearing the face mask more than we have. I know some of us have not been as diligent about that as we should. We need to continue to do a lot of public education that has been going on, so that the public truly understands that by participating in the best practices, they're helping not just everyone else, they're helping themselves too. If we can get the businesses reopened, I think that there is pent up consumer interest in spending. So I think that there will be a lot of spending in the economy if we can get businesses opened up. And if consumers exercise this spent up interest in spending, then we will have greater tax revenues than have been projected at this point in time. I know, quite frankly, I'm very ready for things like the nail salons where I go to. It's not ready yet, but hair salons, a lot of us are anxious to get those things that we enjoy opened back up. Now, I'm a little more concerned about things such as bars, where people are more closely together, and perhaps in an atmosphere of consumption of alcohol, where they're not going to be careful about not being in contact with each other. And I suspect they'll forget to wash their hands, won't they, Dr. Bohlke, in those kinds of situations. But I think that we should allow those businesses that want to open up following the best practices to go ahead and do that. And I think that in the long run, if everyone works together, then the consumer and the business operator, we can have successful reopening, and the business operators can be earning their living, their employees will be earning their living, and we'll have much more input into the tax revenue, and things will pick up a little bit more aggressively than perhaps some economists are saying. Because, you know, I suspect that all those stimulus checks and everything are being spent somewhere or the other, and, you know, people are tired of just having to go to Walmart or the Buy Low or whatever store they have it for to spend for groceries and that sort of thing. I know that the women are ready for retail shopping, retail therapy, as we call it. So I think that with pent up consumer need to spend, we can recover quickly.
Okay, Mr. Sammons?
I agree. We have to reopen the economy. We have to do it carefully, or else we'll be in the same situation that we were a few months ago with a spike in the curve. So I do think, like Judge Palmer said, we have to keep the public informed, as well as just encourage masks, encourage social distancing, and from a government response, do like I mentioned earlier with South Korea, have separate testing facilities, and rapid, effective testing. As far as like a tailored approach to rural Georgia, this is something I put on my Facebook. I think the kind of one size fits all approach, tax credits to large corporations to move here, hasn't benefited the rest of Georgia quite like it has Atlanta. And it's done really well with Atlanta. However, what I would propose is there is an actual federal program that's regulated by the Small Business Administration. It's called a Small Business Investment Company. What it does is it works as a localized hedge fund. And basically, it allows local investors to pour just a tiny bit of money. Most people can't really afford $10,000 or investing in a business all their own. They could probably afford $500 to $1,000. This gives us a stake in our community, and it gives us a stake in getting it back to normal, and it boosts our retirement. So what the state can do with that, how the Small Business Administration supports these is they're tightly regulated to make sure that these giant New York bankers don't take advantage of us and take all of our money. And they also double the initial investment from the hedge funds or from the localized community. So if you have $250,000 in investment, you are able to access a $500,000 loan at probably 1% to 2%, depending on the determination by the SBA. As far as Georgia, we can help them out by matching that. So if you have a $250,000 investment from the local community, you can access up to an additional $1 million at very low interest rates. And then to make sure you have a check on that, we can also pass legislation for a new type of corporation that allows local members sit on this hedge fund's board, giving us a stake in it and also making the right decisions. It's a way to get a lot of local control with backing from the state and federal government, and it would help us out more than just passing blanket tax credits for these large companies to come and save us.
Okay, Mr. Singleton, what's your plan to get the economy percolating?
I think we should just open up. No restrictions. Let's go for it. Now, that will probably upset some people, and people are like, well, you need to be safe and this and that. You still have a choice to stay home. I believe we need to let small business make their decisions. Let the citizens of Georgia do it. They have a choice to go open up and start giving back to the community. I mean, even my family now, we went, what was it, 2 weeks ago to Pooler, and we ate at a Texas Roadhouse or something. Everybody was sitting 6 to 8 feet apart. And I know that they couldn't fill their seats. They're not making the revenue. They were being safe. There's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, you know, when we went out, we also left a $50 tip on a $50 meal. That's one way to get, you know, people want to give. Let's give them the chance. Open the businesses up. Tell them, say, yeah, guys, you know what, be safe. All you employees, wash your hands. They should be doing it anyway. Why are we telling them to do it now? Why are we telling the people in the kitchen to wash their hands before handling food and wearing hairnets and this and that? They should have already been doing that. I believe that once we get the economy back open, we're going to see a surge. We're going to see such a surge in the economy here in Georgia that it will rival anything in the last decade.
Okay.
We're going to have people are going to go out and spend money. If you were to open up the stores in Pooler, the Parkway stores, the what is it, the Tanger Mall? If you were to open that up, I bet you alone you'd see a $5 to $10 million day at Tanger outlets. People want to go out and spend money. They don't want to go. They don't want to sit at home, or they don't want to fear going out. Well, I can't get into this restaurant because they seat 150, but they're only letting 5 people in. Nobody's going to go out. Let Georgians do what Georgians do. Go out, be social, spend some money. I will. I'll tell you right now. Now, I'd go get my hair cut, but I'm afraid it makes my hairdresser uncomfortable. Of course, she hasn't opened yet. But as soon as she does, I'm getting my hair cut. It's horrible. Look at it. But I think that's what we need to do. We need to open up, and we're going to see that surge, and then we can evaluate. Give it 30 days. Give it 60 days. evaluate it after we open up Georgia fully. No restrictions. Let people spend their money like they should be doing.
Okay, sir. Dr. Bohlke?
Yes, I worry about small businesses right now. Small businesses are the backbone of this state, of this district, and of course of this country. I fear that this virus shutdown, with the shutdown due to the virus, that many of these small businesses will not come back. I was talking to a patient the other day about if somebody had just owned a restaurant, just opened a restaurant, was just getting going, and then this hit, and they may not reopen. And that means people lose their health insurance too as well. So what can we do to get these people back to work? I think certainly trying to help small businesses. How do we incentivize them, help them reduce the regulation to get back going? But more importantly, in this district, it's about education too as well, maybe retraining the workers. Just today, Government Kemp stated that they got a $12 million dislocated workers from the Department of Labor. And that's to help people to get back to be retrained in our technical schools. We have two great technical schools in our area. We got a Geechee Tech here in Bullitt County, and certainly Swainsboro Tech in Manual County. Those are great options. I just learned that there's 17 degrees that qualify for the HOPE that are in high demand at a technical school that nobody will have to pay tuition for. Get these people back to work and get them retrained by getting them back to work by doing it through the technical schools too as well. Oh, by the way, can we get some medical manufacturing back to this state instead of overseas? We saw the issues with getting masks and everything else because guess what? They were made in China. How can we get that back in here? There's a lot of places right here in this district that could accomplish that feat. And lastly, I think cybersecurity just in Augusta is a huge industry that's starting up, and the national headquarters actually of cybersecurity is going to be in Augusta, Georgia. We're very close to them. How can we partner to be with them to help in that regard? And lastly, I like to say that we need rural broadband. I think getting that to the areas such as Emmanuel County, such as Tatton, all this district should have the rural broadband. I've seen stories about students having to go to a bus that has Wi-Fi so they can do their homework. Businesses need that internet to succeed moving forward and even in the past. So I think we need to do all these, and it was not just one single answer that to help to get the economy back going. So I do think that this, with all this, I think we'll see not only an immediate, but also a long-term benefit for our district and state.
Okay, Mr. Hickman?
As I stated earlier, I'm very happy that Brian Kemp was a leader. Our governor was a leader in opening our businesses back up. As I've been out campaigning around the district, it is amazing to watch businesses as they open and how much customers go in there and how happy they are. And I've talked to businesses that have opened up back up in the last few days or so, and the numbers are record numbers of sales, record numbers of purchase and all. And I think this is a sign of the opening up. However, at the same time, I think we obviously need to be smart in our openings. We need to exercise the social distancing. You know, people are very aware of what has happened the last 2 months, and people are very saddened of what's happened the last 2 months. But it's made us more innovative of how we need to operate in the future. You know, I've seen businesses now that are trying to do things different. They got places on the floor that should only be 6 feet from each other, that type of thing. You know, the thing that we need to be thinking about now, there's a popular phrase that's been around for a long time, says, think outside the box. I think now what we need to be doing, we need to be thinking inside the box. And the box is what we got right now, and we need to figure out a way to deal with it, such as, I think we need to, our businesses, such as our restaurants, they need to be thinking about maybe going out in the parking lot, roping off the parking lot, moving half the furniture and chairs in the parking lot. You know, we've been very fortunate the last several weeks. You know, normally by this time of year, we've had very hot weather. We have not had very hot weather. We've had moderate weather. So why not move some of those tables and chairs out in the parking lot and still have the same level of business? I think the social distancing, get our businesses back going on a systematic basis. Along with that will come increased sales will come increased sales taxes. When people are happy and they're out and about, they have a tendency to spend more. I talked to some contractors the last few days. They got more business than they've ever had. So there's certain segments of our economy that are really doing well. Now, what we got to do is we got to protect those like the restaurants that are slowed open, and maybe like the judge said, the nail salons and different things like that. But I think people are so much more aware of what we need to be doing, washing our hands, taking care of ourselves, no hugging, no shaking hands, which is what we've never been like this before. But I think we're there. And just to be more innovative in our way of thinking, a way of handling our businesses, but we've got to get our businesses back going. We cannot sustain the decrease in sales that we've got. We cannot sustain, much less all the other impacts of this. The sexual assault stuff is up highly. Alcohol sales are up highly. Our gun sales are up highly. All the children being trapped in the homes, sexual abuse is up highly. I talked to the sexual assault center here in Statesboro, and the numbers are tremendously compared to a year ago, even when Georgia Southern was in force. Georgia Southern's not in force now. All those numbers are extremely high. There's a lot of implications from this. We've got to be positive. We've got to take aggressive action. We've got to move forward, but we got to be smart when we're moving forward. And we're too smart not to be smart. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sammons, it's your turn to go first. And you and Mr. Singleton have both mentioned eliminating some tax breaks, corporate tax breaks to sort of ease the gap that we're facing. So I'm asking you first, but it goes to all of you again. Are there any kind of tax hikes that you would support? I learned while preparing for this that Georgia's cigarette tax rate, for instance, is only 37 cents a pack, and the national average is $1.81. That in itself would generate hundreds of millions of dollars. So is there anything along that line that you could support?
I'm definitely willing to look at the sin taxes, as they're sometimes called, with cigarettes and alcohol. I think you need to do a deep dive and see where because every increase in tax, it takes money out of the economy and it might make a business unviable. I don't want to do that. I mean, I don't want government to be the reason for a business to go out of, to just stop operating. I think there are quite a few tax breaks out there that can be repealed, that can shorten that that shortfall in the budget. And I even came up with a test on my Facebook, and it kind of gives it a tiered analysis. If it's something like the GATE program that allows the farmers to exempt about $400 in this area, about $400 in equipment and supplies, that's something I want to keep, because that $400, say it's in seeds, it grows exponentially, and it puts more into our economy. That's something I would keep, and it provides us food. So it takes care of our need while it also gives us more money at the end of the day. Something like the rural carpool tax credit, I don't really see that being beneficial to us. It's, it only applies to rural counties, tier 1 and tier 2 counties. Effingham's actually a tier 3. It can't even benefit from it. And I heard on the Board of Education public forum, their traffic woes, they can't even benefit from a tax credit like this. So that's something that should be probably repealed as well. To answer the second part of your question, I'd have to really look closely at, raising a tax. If the cigarette tax is below average, I'm all for that. I can probably tell you right now. But as far as like reversing the income tax rate that was done last year, Nathan Deal did advise against it. However, it could be revisited again. I'm not committing to that. It's something that's going to take a deep dive, and it's going to take both chambers of the General Assembly, and it's something that requires a lot of analysis. But some things you can't just cut the entire budget. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Singleton?
Yeah, Jerry made some good points, actually. I had some notes about the carpool tax, but he's actually addressed that pretty much aligned with what I would look at. There's so many tax credits out there that are not needed. And we could go through a tax code book and probably eliminate 50% of that book. And we should, it just makes no sense. Gate card is great. But what I really want to address, like you brought up, is what is referred to in Georgia as a sin tax. 37 cents a pack on cigarettes, where it's well below the average. I think you said $1.50 or
$1.31.
Okay, so nearly $1 or so a pack. Here's the problem I have with that is, why do we punish people for a personal choice? We call it a sin tax in legislature, and I'm not a smoker, but should we be punishing people with a higher tax rate because they choose to do something that's legal? Should that also not be an ethical question we're asking ourselves? If I would not support a tax increase like that. I can hear Mr. Hickman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
So any tax increase that gets burdened on citizens is a tax increase I won't support. It just should not be happening. The situation now is not the fault of citizens. This budget shortfall is not the fault of citizens. If anybody supports some additional taxes here, 1% here, 0.5% here, you're not for the citizens. They shouldn't be paying for this. And this sin tax, I had notes to talk about it, is what gets me. The state of Georgia punishes people for personal choice to do something that's legal. Will not support it. We can look at tax reform and look at who we're not taxing properly in a fair tax initiative and go from there. But the citizens are not responsible for this shortfall, and citizens should not be punished for any of the shortfall by an increase of taxes. Thank you.
Dr. Bohlke?
So I'm against taxes, especially at this time. So many people are hurting right now. Why would we want to go up on the taxes? Let me give you, I respectfully disagree on the sin tax. I think it is important. I think it works. It helps fund our trauma, our rural trauma network, our trauma network when it comes to medical. When you get in a car accident and you're airlifted to Memorial in Savannah, that's helping pay for that service. Also, people who smoke, unfortunately, have heart disease, and that costs money. They also get lung cancer. That costs money. People who drink excessively, they develop cirrhosis, they develop diabetes. It costs money. So that is money that if they're on Medicaid, it perhaps would cost the state money. It also costs health insurance, and that's why they charge a higher premium on those patients. But let me give you an example where a tax credit really works, and it's right next door. It's in Metter. It's in Camden County, and it's the tax credit that goes to the hospital. You display some of your income tax for the state and donate it to the hospital. That hospital is doing really well now at the present time. That works, and that helps people. If you do not have a hospital in your county, I spoke to somebody over in Evans County that had a heart attack, died on the way to the hospital, was revived, airlifted to Savannah, quote unquote, died again. But well, I was sitting there talking to him the other day. Those things matter to people. They need the local health care, even if it's just to stabilize them. And those kind of tax credits do help. So I am opposed to any, especially at this time, for any tax increases, but those tax credits really help. And that is a great example. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hickman?
I think what we need to think about is where we came from. And we came from an economy that is very successful. We came from an economy that people worked. We got an economy that was growing. And we don't need to forget about that's what happens when business are doing well. I'm not for an increase in tax. I would not be for an increase in tax. What we need to be looking at again is ways to grow our economy through growing our businesses and ways to attract business and attract manufacturing businesses. And as we've said, through this coronavirus, we've learned a lot through this. Just like we did through the oil crisis, we learned not to be dependent on the world for oil. Through this coronavirus, we've learned not to be dependent on the world for our pharmaceuticals. As we move further and further into that, our business will grow, and through those growth, the business will pay tax. Will pay a fair tax. We will not come out of this situation we're in now by increasing taxes. we'll come out of this situation we're in now by growing our economy, being smart, increasing our jobs. You know, we got a lot of underemployed people that we need to provide great jobs for them so they can be employed at the level that they need to be. One of my big concerns is, as I stated earlier, that we got a lot of people, children that are doing very well in education, going to very good universities, but they're not coming back to our district. And by not coming back to our district because there's not adequate jobs. That's the way you grow an economy. You grow an economy by jobs, and you don't grow an economy by taxing the businesses that are creating jobs. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
Thank you. Now, Mark, you asked this question. You know, that's a question you pose to Republicans, and you know Republicans theoretically just don't want to hike up taxes. So you've just tried to bait us there is what you've tried to do. And I think we all learned a lesson, didn't we, from President George H.W. Bush when he said no new taxes, and then he had to eat his words. So when we deal with taxes, none of us philosophically want to raise any taxes whatsoever, but none of us knows what's going to happen day to day or legislative session to legislative session. We've got to finish this legislative session right now that's going on because we have 10 more days in this 40-day session for 2020, and we don't have a budget yet. We have to have a budget by July 1. It's all constitutional. So we've got to get a balanced budget. And so right now that means all we can do is cut, cut, cut. And that's unfortunate. But as it's been said, we didn't create the COVID-19. We didn't create the situation. We had a booming economy in Georgia. So right now we have to deal with the reality of cutting. Now, as we go forward from here and come into the legislative session in 2020, it's going to be necessary to look at all issues to see what's going to help. Now, I tell you that some of the things that have been talked about are very beneficial. The gate thing that applies to agriculture, that's absolutely necessary to let our farmers be able to go out and make a living. They're barely eking by now. And if we take away the few tax opportunities that they have to reduce their taxes, that's going to be detrimental. And we all have learned from this COVID-19 situation that we want food and we want it now, and we want the grocery store stocked. So let's do everything we can to promote agriculture in Georgia, and particularly in Senate District 4. The hospital credit, like Kansas County, Emmanuel County is doing very well with those hospital credits, and we're very fortunate to be able to have people making those transfers so that the Emmanuel County Hospital can thrive. And I'm happy to report that in Emmanuel County, I expect more taxes out of a business because of COVID-19, a pillow factory in Emmanuel County has converted to making PPE. And I guarantee you they're going to be doing better than ever. Okay, I know for a fact they're hiring. Hey, I've retired, you know, if I don't get this senator gig, maybe I can go out there and start sewing. I don't know what they pay, but we'll check. But nonetheless, I suspect that that's an industry in Emmanuel County that's going to grow more taxes for our county. Let's be positive, folks. I agree with a lot of these concepts. Let's bring a lot of things back home. Let's bring them back to District 4. Let's work on that. Let's don't talk about hiking up taxes. Let's talk about growing the economy, opening up with the best practices, allowing freedom for everyone who wants to stay home and feel safer to do that without any repercussions from anybody giving them any grief. And let's let our Senate District 4 grow and prosper.
All right. And in a moment of revelation, I want to say that President Bush breaking his pledge caused me to vote for Ross Perot. I'll admit it for the public.
See, I told you.
All right, Mr. Singleton, you finally get to go first with a question. And this is going to be in the medical line too. Georgia taxpayers fund the insurance cost of about 2 million people. We've got the third worst rate in the country for uninsured people. What can we do to resolve that situation?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think most taxpayers would refer to something like this as probably a healthcare for all or Medicare for all program. It does absolutely. There are indigent and underinsured people that need help, and the state should be helping. At 2 million people, that's actually, I hate to see that number. I hate to see anybody uninsured, especially after some stuff that I'm very aware of, and even personally, very well insured now. But I do not. This is one thing that they're going to ask to be cut, 14%. How can we look a Georgia citizen in the eye and say, hey, I don't know how we're going to pay for this, so I'm sorry, you get refused service. I don't think most doctors will, but the problem with this is they can be refused service at public hospitals. I don't know an answer on how to fund this. I really have no idea. I don't know how to fix it right now. I don't know how to fund it because one side of my brain wants to say, should the state and the taxpayers be funding a program of healthcare for all? If taxpayers who have healthcare, should they be provided a tax cut, a tax credit as well? So I can't be on one side saying taxpayers should be paying for something, on the other side saying that no taxpayers shouldn't be paying for something. This is something I really don't know how to fund it. I don't know how to make sure that everybody's covered, especially in a time where we're in a $4 billion crisis. It's just, I don't have an answer for it. So I can't make up anything to say I do.
Okay. Dr. Bohlke.
So thank you for this question too as well. This is, it's near and dear to me, obviously, because I do take care of patients who don't have insurance and we give them a discounted rate because they have to pay in cash. Also remind you, I did start the Hearts and Hands Clinic here, which is for these people who do not apply for or don't fit for Medicare or Medicaid and don't make enough money or can't afford health insurance. That is something that the communities certainly can do. There's been some push when I was over in Claxton to consider that too as well. But more importantly, there's several other things that I know as a physician. One is that with insurance, everybody's health is better. So the governor Kemp here has explored Medicaid waivers, something they've done in Arkansas. And that's getting the money from the feds and then using it and distribute it how they see fit at the state level. I certainly think that could be a possibility here in the state of Georgia. Georgia was one of the 12 states, I believe, that did not accept Medicaid expansion. The other thing is a couple other things. We need increase in insurance at competition. There's been some talk about purchasing your insurance across state lines. This would increase competition, therefore lower your premiums. That has to be worked out. Not sure that that's going to be in the near future. Lastly, you need the insurance to follow the individual and not be tied to the job. As I've said before, with people losing their jobs, they lose their insurance. If the person had insurance, even if they lost their job, it was not tied to their job, no matter what happened to their job, they'd still have the insurance. And I think that's vitally important to the patients in this area. So I do believe there are potential solutions. Does that cover everybody? No, probably not, but it's a start. And I think it's something that needs to be done because as I take care of folks, I have to make difficult decisions when whether they get certain procedures done, certain medicines that cost expensively. Pharmaceutical companies certainly are making so much more money. And unfortunately, we subsidize the rest of the world with our paying for the medications. So how can we help that too as well? So all these would help people who don't have health insurance, or even people who do have insurance, they have such high premiums, they don't really have health insurance. If you have a $10,000 premium and you're a worker that doesn't make a lot of money, does that mean you really have health insurance? It may be for catastrophic, but not for your day-to-day kind of things. It's still going to be very costly. So I serve those as potential solutions. It's a very difficult thing, but I think with increased competition, with a free market use, with a government and private payer mix, I think that's the solution. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Hickman.
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. It's a question that's really tough for me to answer. I'm a very compassionate person. I love people. It hurts me to know that there are people out there without health insurance, because I know, as some of the candidates said, that becomes a taxing situation, which is a bad word, on our society. I've served on a local hospital board, East Georgia Regional Medical Center, And they tell us the number of dollar amounts of each month that are not paid by people without health insurance. And obviously that becomes payable back on our local economy because the rates have to go up. This is a subject that I haven't really thought a lot about. I'm very aware of it because it affects all of us. My wife and I healthcare insurance at one time was about $18,000 a year. And that was extremely tough. I can imagine people without health insurance. I counsel clients on it. I ask clients, I beg clients to try to find some type of form of health insurance. It is something that I'm willing to look into. It's something that I know from a state senator that will be very beneficial for our state to look into, and I'm willing to consider it. But at this point, that's my answer.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
Thank you. The health insurance issue is one that's problematic for all of us, both on a philosophical level as well as a financial level. And we've dealt with that over the decades, and we really haven't come up with a good solution yet. Things like Medicaid expansion, obviously that's not going to happen now when budgets are being cut across the board by 14% or maybe more. So we've got to deal with this on the long-term situation. I think that we do need to start thinking perhaps in other alternative ways. I know that as an attorney years ago, I was incorporating attorney for East Georgia Healthcare and quickly became a member of the board of directors. This is a federally qualified healthcare center that has expanded to have offices in every county in Senate District 4 except one. And the offices aren't so far away that the ones in that county couldn't get to it if they didn't have health insurance and needed to go to a place where they could have health care on a sliding fee scale. The East Georgia Healthcare Facility that does span practically the whole district is a resource that those without health care can seek for primary care and other expanded services, or even like mental health and dental services. Also, I think we need to think outside the box and take measures to promote education. We have pockets of the population in Senate District 4 and across the state who suffer from such things as high levels of diabetes and high blood pressure in these segments of our society. And we need to take education to those. We have a resource right here in Georgia and across the United States, and certainly in Senate District 4, called the Cooperative Extension Service. They have home economists who are uniquely trained to provide education like diabetes education, nutrition education, and by teaching the public, particularly concentrating on these pockets of citizens who need more help to increase their everyday normal personal health, they make better choices about their nutrition and they can reduce these diabetic situations and high blood pressure. We've got to think totally outside the box and expand the resources we have. Let's send this nutrition education into those segments of society that need help. Let's teach people where they can go to get health care on a sliding fee basis. Let's look for solutions right now when we don't have any money to expand anything dealing with health care. And let's try to utilize the services that we have in place so that everyone can have primary health care. And as we come out of this COVID-19 recession, depression, whatever it's going to eventually be called, let's all work together so that we can come up with a viable system so everyone can have.
Okay, Mr. Sammons.
Well, I think the Medicaid expansion we missed the boat on. I don't think it's even politically feasible, if it's even budgetarily feasible. And a lot of this is controlled by the federal government. That doesn't mean that the state shouldn't look at all options, and I'm willing to do so. And I agree with Dr. Bohlke that we probably need to look at compartmentalizing where health insurance follows the individual. As we see now, unemployment rate hits almost 16% today, I think. And if health insurance and all these benefits are kept tied to jobs that aren't there, it's kind of pointless to kind of keep going with that system. So we might need to look at lobbying the federal government to maybe compartmentalize these benefits and working towards that. But then that still leaves the problem that health insurances cost have skyrocketed. They've kept at it. And I agree competition is good, but I don't know if breaking down the barriers to let companies concentrate their market power and keep taking advantage of us is that answer without broad-based antitrust enforcement. Because I think that's what would happen if we were to break down those barriers. We probably need some antitrust suits now to get to reverse that market power and increased competition, because I do think competition is what lowers prices. And I agree with Judge Palmer. We need to look at ourselves. You know, the best health insurance is preventive health insurance. We do that by exercising, by eating right, and a lot of health issues can be avoided by that. Not all, and because we're not all lucky. You know, I suffer from hair loss, so, but it's one of those things that, you know, we can improve on ourselves and keep ourselves healthy, as well as a collaborative effort with the federal government to lobby changes to see that health insurance follows the individual and not the job. Because as this crisis has shown, a lot of people don't have health insurance because they don't have jobs.
Okay. Well, as I expected, we've run out of time before I ran out of questions. But when you give your closing remarks, if you have a Facebook page or a website that you would like to direct voters to, please mention that in your closing remarks, and they can see your positions on some of these other things we didn't get to. And there was a bunch of them, you know, abortion, Second Amendment, the situation in Brunswick, you know, does Georgia need a hate crime law? Because we're one of the few states that don't have that. Gambling, transportation needs, there's so many things we didn't get to. So you know, again, if you mention your website or Facebook page during your closing remarks, that'd be great. And we'll start the closing with Dr. Bohlke.
Mark, once again, I want to thank you and the Chamber of Commerce and the paper for putting this on. And I want to thank the fellow candidates here. It takes courage to get up here and do these kind of things and put yourself out there and let people shoot arrows at you, so to speak. But let me tell you this, I also appreciate the opportunity to be here, because the majority of this discussion was about healthcare. And what a perfect person to be in this spot at this time to be running for this seat. Without your health, what do you have? And it really comes down to health. If you don't have your health, you really don't have anything. And what better person to be in that position to do that? I've been on teleconferences speaking earlier on the coronavirus task force. I speak to Ben Watson, who's the chair. He's a physician in Savannah, who's a chair on that task force too as well. With my association with the Medical Association of Georgia, I've been on those calls, I have seen the data, and have helped try to guide the governor as well as the physicians who are on that task force. So that's been that's been fun. It's been enjoyable to be a part of that, but also a little bit terrifying considering all the things that are happening right now. I have been in this, I serve in my office seeing patients. What a better way to do that and get the pulse, so to speak, of my district. I see these patients, take care of their medical needs, but also we end up talking about politics, especially in the past 4 weeks since I have run. I also want to say, I want to be the senator for the long term. It's just not a 1 or 2 term type of issue for me. It's a long term. Jack Hill was there for 30 years. You don't build your influence over in 1 or 2 terms. It takes time, and I'm willing to do that for you. As a freshman legislator, one person asked, what could you do? Well, I'm telling you, it's healthcare. That's what I could do. That's where I'd have the biggest part as a freshman senator. So I want to, once again, thank everybody for being here. My Facebook is Scott Bohlke for Senate. It's on there as well, and scottbohlke.com is the website. So I appreciate this opportunity and I look forward to perhaps more.
Okay, Mr. Hickman.
Yeah, thank you so very much. My Facebook page is Billy Hickman for State Senate. And thank you. It's been a great opportunity for all of us to be here today. And we thank you, Mark, and we thank the paper and Effingham County Chamber of Commerce. It's, as we've heard, it's enlightening, and hopefully we've addressed the issues. I hope that it's been very enlightening for everybody. I know the folks in the 4th District want a senator that will work to protect the existing jobs and work to create jobs. I think you want a senator who will fight the Atlanta politicians to fund and educate our children, fund our regional universities, and fund our technical schools. I do not think you are voting for a senator to represent just Atlanta. You want a senator that's going to represent South Georgia. I am proud that over 80% of our contributions have come from our district. All of my life, I have spent building personal relationships. During my 45 years as a CPA, I spent hours each day meeting and speaking with clients. I worked late in the evening doing the accounting work I could not get during the day because of meeting with clients. I was listening to my clients. I was talking to my clients. I was praying with my clients. I want to have a personal relationship with everybody in our district. I am the only candidate that has given their personal telephone number out. My telephone number is 912-682-5819. 912-682-5819. I hope when I'm elected senator that I get appointed to the Appropriations Committee. Jack Hill was chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Again, I support Governor Kemp in his effort to open our economy, and he relies heavily on the Georgia Department of Public Health and Dr. Kathleen Toomey. On a side note, you see, I came from very humble beginnings. My father was a welder. My mother worked at a sewing plant. My parents never owned a home. They rented the whole time. I never lived in a house that had indoor plumbing until I was 9 years old. Yes, I used that house. I went to it in cold weather. I went to it in hot weather. I took baths out in the wash tub out by the well. I remember when my father had double pneumonia and my mother had been laid off from work. If it hadn't been for people bringing food to our house, we would not be able to eat. I remember the first time someone brought food to our house and I ate a turkey leg. And I have those memories, and that's what helps me relate to people and relate to all people. I tell you that because I am a people person. I have been there. I want to help our district. I want to help provide jobs for our children. I want our schools to be great. I want all of our children to have opportunities for jobs. I was born to serve, and that is what I want to do as your state senator. I am proud today to announce that several
Is it just me or did I lose him?
We lost him.
I lost him too.
I was making sure. I don't have broadband at my house. I'm running off of a Verizon cell phone. So, and I get one bar where I live. So I'm just making sure.
We'll give him another second or two and then we'll proceed to Ms. Palmer. If he gets back up, then in fairness, we need to let him finish up. I'll tell you what, Ms. Palmer, if you're ready, you go ahead and we'll get back to him if he gets online with us.
All right, thank you. I want to join in thanking all of you in Effingham County who's made this town hall possible tonight. I know that the citizens out there who are concerned about this election have enjoyed being able to see all of us in one setting. Soul searching as to why I'm running for this job, my friends have forced me to really sit down and think about why I am doing this. And I came up with 4 reasons. First, I want to be a servant. All my life, I've served in various capacities, whether I'm baking cakes to serve for the Sunshine House Child Abuse Center so that regional child advocacy center can have money for counseling for abused children, whether I'm cooking at the church Wednesday night supper, and I'm in charge of my church's Wednesday night supper and have been for about a decade now. And it's one of our church's most successful programs. Whether I'm serving my homemade macaroni and cheese that's quite famous around Swainsboro, actually, maybe y'all get to have some sometime. Whether I'm serving it to the 4-Hers at the Varna 4-H Center, or whether I'm serving it to the people graduating from our drug court. We have about 150 people generally at our drug court graduation dinner. And we're so proud of all those people who have beat back their addiction. Whatever it is that I'm doing, that I'm serving, that's what I like doing. Serving as a Superior Court judge is a service as well. And I'm ready to be a servant for the citizens of Senate District 4. And I'm ready to do that full time. I don't have an agenda except to serve Senate District 4. And I think another thing, in addition to being ready to work full time and to having a servant's heart, is that I do have an extensive legislative experience. And I won't go into that now, but you can see that on my website at www.kathypalmerforstatesenate.com. Catch me on Facebook as well. That's Kathy Palmer for State Senate. And I'd appreciate you going there and reading all about me. Probably have way too much stuff about me on my website, but read it if you like. I would appreciate it. And also, I think a fourth thing that sets me apart is that for the past almost 20 years, I've been sitting on the Superior Court bench, making difficult decisions all day long. As professionals like doctors and accountants and people who work in the public sector, you give advice, and then your client makes a decision. But as a trial judge, as a Superior Court judge, I make the decision. I've spent a long time listening to both sides of the story, and I've learned to listen to both sides of the story. Don't make any snap judgments. You got to hear it all and see it all and apply the law to it before you can make a decision. So this history I have of making difficult decisions in very hard situations that impact people's lives. Does the child go home with the mother or the father? The non-custodial parent, how much money are they going to pay out of their income to the other party for the support of the children? What are those visitation rights going to be? Are they going to be limited? Are they going to be expansive? On the criminal arena, is the party pleading guilty or convicted by a jury? Are they going to jail? And if so, for how long? How much money has to be paid by the losing party? These are the difficult decisions that I've made every day for the past almost 20 years. And I think the ability to listen to both sides gives me a unique perspective in making those difficult decisions. I have great experience in that. And coming from the judicial position where I was by law required to be non-political and nonpartisan, I'm accustomed to working at the legislature across the aisle. I had to reach across to both sides, to both parties, to advocate for whatever my issue was, what the new child support law should be, how the adoption law should go, what should the grandparent visitation rights be? Should we have e-filing for civil filing? Should the people representing themselves be required to e-file when they don't have any program for e-filing? How does that happen? These are difficult decisions that I've made every day, and these are legislative issues that I've advocated for at the state legislature. And I think all of these perspectives give me a unique advantage in being the right person to represent Senate District 4. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sammons.
I wanted to thank you, Mark, and as well as the Effingham Chamber for hosting this, as well as my fellow candidates. It's been a real privilege. And yeah, just thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to close that we just finished the biggest economic expansion in decades, and it was erased in a few weeks. And even now, the parties are still fighting. And during that period of economic expansion, Atlanta benefited way more than the rest of the state. And we can't get left behind again during this expansion. And regardless of who caused or the response to this pandemic, we still have to fight it. And though it's too late to prevent it, we need to learn from this. When we cut the budgets of our public goods, the public pays for them exponentially in the future. And this isn't just with public health, this is with everything that the market can't take care of. And that also begs the question that why during one of the longest economic expansions did we see public goods cut when in previous decades they were better funded with less available money? And I'll get to that on my website and why that happened. But no doubt there are drawbacks as me running as an independent, but I don't think change is possible from within the parties now. The leaders, the interest groups, and the donors have too much power, and they crush any dissent within them. I can introduce legislation just like every other senator, and that legislation will come from me with your input, not lobbyists. And what I don't have to put up with in a party is what makes me truly independent. I don't have to risk a primary challenger. If I cross the aisle, I am the aisle. I'm using technology for fractions of the cost. So I'm fiscally responsible there, and I'm not controlled by any big donors. What you see is what you get. No meaningless slogans at the end of the day, no fighting because of a letter by my name, no buzzwords, just thoughtful and honest answers with practical solutions. And like I said earlier, this partisan bickering has to end. People are miserable and politics share the blame. I promise you my best. I need your help though. Let's fix this. I can be found on Facebook with a lot of concrete policies at Jared for State Senator, or Jared for State Senate, excuse me. And that's the number 4. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you, Mark. I had to get serious with the hat on. I think better with the hat on for some reason. And this is me. If you're going to see me out in the public, most likely you're going to see me with a hat, a t-shirt, and blue jeans. So let's just we'll get real for a minute. My Facebook page is simple, Neil Singleton for Senate, at Neil Singleton for Senate. My webpage is www.neil4georgia, that's Neil4GA Senate.com. My webpage isn't very fancy or anything. It just gives you just a quick rundown. I'm more active on Facebook than anything. I want to correct Mr. Hickman, which is no longer here for some reason. Still didn't come back.
No.
As being the only candidate has released his phone number. My phone number has been available. Oh, there's Mr. Hickman. Is he back now? So I want to correct Mr. Hickman that he's the only candidate that's released his phone number. That is 100% inaccurate because my phone number has been available since September 2019 on the Facebook page. And I've received many calls, many text messages. So Mr. Hickman, you are not correct in that assumption. I'm also the only candidate to release his financials fully. 100% financials to date. My income record to date for the last few years. I'm also the only candidate who has sworn to not take any corporate or lobbyist donations and believe that those donations should actually be outlawed. They should be banned from a senator taking any corporate, lobbyist, or large firm donations from people who have an interest in you gaining office. I'm the only senator who has said I will serve this seat without pay. And I'm probably, besides Jared, I don't know Jared's financials or his really background other than law school, I'm probably the only one who can not afford to not take a salary. $17,342 a year. And I'm telling now, and I'm saying no to it. I ask all the other senators to do the same. That's a challenge. I'm for the people, 100%. Tax is a burden on the citizens. We need to start looking at why corporations and look more into a fair tax initiative. And if you actually Google fair tax initiative, you'll find out more about what I'm talking about and how it works and why it would actually improve Georgia. Expansion in Georgia, right now we need to expand 100%. And what can we expand and expand overnight? Agriculture. We have hundreds of thousands of empty acres right now because farmers are fighting red tape. Let's get rid of red tape, let farmers farm. Hemp is going to be the biggest industry coming up for agriculture, estimated to be $25 billion in the next 3 years. We have the perfect climate, but yet Georgia wants to make it such a financial burden on farmers that they don't want to do it. They want to make such a financial burden on processors that they don't want to process hemp. With that, I had just read that a hemp processor is coming to Georgia. We need to be prepared. The farmers can make $40,000 to $50,000 per ton per acre of hemp and CBD production. How quickly could we recover the economy with that? How quickly could we allow CBD oil access to the Georgia citizens and not worried about having to mail order something. Some other stuff, I was actually kind of a little offended with the comment that judges, doctors, and attorneys know the struggles to make decisions. That inherently means that a person, which Jared's not an attorney, I'll include him, does not make a decision. I've been in life or death decisions in the military, been in life or death decisions as a police officer and as a deputy sheriff. I've been in courts where I've had to testify to put people in prison for their life over what they've done. It hurts me morally and ethically on some stuff that I've had to do because people were wrong. I've made the hard decisions. I've made decisions not to have to take a life. The growing the Tattnall County, growing District 4, Evans County, Bullitt County, Candler, we need to make sure that all these citizens are taken care of from the top down with health care and internet access, which I've been preaching on for 3 or 4 months now, which is horrible here. I live in an area where you can't even get cable TV, which is sad. And the Canucci EMC and EMC's directive says they don't want to do it, even though Georgia spent millions of dollars passing a law to allow power companies to access and provide broadband services. But once it was passed, they all refused. Why? Why did we pass it? Why did we waste millions of dollars? I worry about the citizens and the citizens only. I have nothing to gain from this seat. Nothing at all. I've refused a salary. I've refused corporate and lobbyist donations. My donations to date is $110. Can any other candidates say they're anywhere near that? No. Maybe Jared. I don't see many Jared signs out there, Jared. If I was not in this race, and I've been in this race since September of 2019, where were these other candidates? You weren't around. I stood up for the citizens in September of 2019 and said it's time for change. I didn't jump in after Jack Hill's unfortunate death. I've been here since September 2019, and in all reality, there shouldn't even be a special election. And in the back of every one of your minds, you know it. Back of the citizens' minds, they know it.
All right, we're running out of time here, so please wrap it up.
All right. So, my website and my stances are clear on Facebook. You guys go visit there. You'll find it out. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hickman, we're going to give you a chance to finish your statement there.
Thank you, Mr. Lester. I was right in the middle of telling our endorsements, and I'll finish those. The U.S. Congressman Buddy Carter, House Majority Leader John Burns, Representative Bill Hitchens, Representative Ron Stevens, Sheriff Jimmy McDuffie from Effingham County, Sheriff Tyson Stevens, Sheriff Randall Tippins, and Sheriff Kyle Sapp. Once we get past the COVID-19 pandemic, my big platform is economic development. I know in order to have economic development, we got to have a great school system, which we do. We got to have great transportation. We got to have great health care. So I'm very committed to rural health care. I know that I am that type of leader to lead the Senate District 4. I am a proven leader. I'm an innovative leader. Please pray for me, pray for my family, and pray for our campaign. Please vote for me. God bless you, and God bless the 4th District. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Well, thank you to all of our participating candidates, and a special thank you to Mark for moderating a frank and informative discussion. I want to remind the voters that Election Day is June 9th, with early voting beginning next Monday, May 18th, and a lot of very important races on the ballot. So again, thank you so much for participating in this, for dealing with the technological requirements of this because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we apologize for any glitches that occurred, but we wish you all the best, and good luck on the campaign trail. Thank you all.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.